Hello everyone and welcome to today's InsideLocal webinar. The title of today's webinar is Optimization for Service Area Businesses. We'll abbreviate that to SAB for short, just to make life a little bit easier for us. A big thank you to everyone who's kind of logged in today. We had over 800 registrations webinar, which is a really good number. And on behalf of everyone who's involved in InsideLocal, from the team I have here to Linda and her team and the speakers and all the support that we've got, really do appreciate you guys taking the time to invest in listening to what we have put on today. We do put a lot of effort in kind of curating and kind of cajoling the speakers to take part, and so far I've done a wonderful amount through kind of chairing this sort of series. But I know how busy everyone is, so thank you for kind of taking the time to get involved. We have two excellent panelists with us today, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from their unique knowledge and experience. I'm going to give them an introduction in a minute, partially because I've got some other stuff to run through first, and also Thomas isn't here yet, and I'd like him to hear the welcome I'm going to give him. So, just going through the kind of plan for the webinar today. In the agenda, there are kind of 6 parts to it. We're just going to recap or go over what the kind of key issues that face SABs in local search. Then we're going to sort of focus on 4 things in particular in terms of how you can overcome these issues, and how our 2 speakers use these to great effect for either their own business or for their clients. So we're going to look at on-place place page optimization. Then we're going to look at on-site optimization. We're going to look at sort of citation opportunities and tactics and strategy, reviews and reputation. Then we're going to have a bit of a kind of recap where both speakers will kind of share their kind of 3 top tips. So the 3 things that if you were to take these away and implement these are the 3 things that they would highly recommend for you to do. In terms of a bit of housekeeping stuff, it's kind of a live Q&A. Obviously, I'll be fielding some questions over to the kind of speakers, and they'll be answering those. And there's also going to be the kind of chat Q&A. So hopefully you've all located the chat module in your GoToWebinar control panel. That's where you should fire through questions. We've got a couple of people kind of who'll be answering questions in there. That's both Linda and Colin from Impresio Marketing. I'll give them a little bit of introduction in a second. So that's the way you can get your questions over to us. The webinar is being recorded, should be available on Monday. There's no webcam, by the way, which you're wondering where our beautiful faces are. It's just our voices and the slide deck. The slide deck has been uploaded to slideshare.net already, and you'll get follow-up emails tomorrow and Monday giving you links to the slide deck and also to the video, should you not be able to stay for the whole thing or want to kind of recap on any particular sections. We're running some polls during the webinar. We're running 3 polls, in fact, and the idea is that we've got a great number of kind of marketeers and SEOs and SMBs joining us today. Hopefully, more than 500. We want to kind of understand how you see the issues that we're going to be talking about with Thomas and Matthew, and then at the end of the kind of Q&A, we'll have been crunching the numbers on those polls, and we'll present the results back to you, and you can see how your answers fared against the other 500 or so kind of marketeers who kind of shared their voice with us today. So, our 2 speakers. Now let me just have a quick check to see if Thomas has arrived with us yet. Nope. No, he hasn't dialed in. So, okay. We're just going to have to carry on as best we can without him, and I do hope that he will join us. Linda, could you just keep an eye out for him in the kind of list of kind of logged in people? And hopefully he'll kind of pipe up, or just pipe up if you see him arriving. So okay. Let's get back into the presentation. So let's pretend that Thomas is with us. First speaker is Thomas Ballantyne. Thomas is the marketing director of Bulwark Pest Control. They're extremely successful SAB. They actually operate in 13 metropolitan areas across the US. Thomas has headed up the marketing for 8 years, and he has really fantastic insights into both the marketing processes for a multi-location SAB, but also the culture within the business and how to overcome those problems that clients might put at you. He can give the client perspective, which is really good. So he's going to give us the kind of inside line on that today. Thomas has spoken at a number of conferences, the likes of SMX West. He's also a contributor to the local search ranking factors survey. He's actually headed off for holiday tomorrow, so he's actually off to Hawaii for a week, so maybe he's headed off a little bit early. We'll have to see. So hopefully he'll be with us very soon. The other speaker who's going to be carrying the baton in the early parts is Matthew Hunt. Welcome to you, Matthew. Matthew's actually been on a previous webinar that we hosted probably about 2 months ago. Matthew heads up a business called Small Business Online Coach, which is smallbusinessonlinecoach.com, which is based in Toronto. Matthew has had a colourful life, coming from a kind of background of kind of acting and performing through to running various successful e-commerce sites, and then kind of turning his attention to local a few years back. You know, he's a regular blogger on all matters related to local search. He's also a contributor to the Local Search Ranking Factors survey. Behind the scenes, we've obviously got myself. Obviously, I am the CEO of Bright Local. We have many of our customers listening in today, so appreciate you guys putting your faith in us and also giving us your time to dial in today. We have Linda, who runs the local search forum, and another person who gives a fantastic amount to the kind of local search industry, and is a great font of information. So, Linda, we all appreciate the work that you and your team do over there. And also helping us out today is Colin from Impresio Marketing. Colin is here to assist us with the chat. A little bit about Impresio Marketing. Colin's actually the local SEO manager at Impresio. They're a specialist local search agency. They work with about 1,300 local small businesses across North America. Actually, know Colin pretty well. They're a customer of ours, so we've got a long-standing relationship, and we do appreciate him giving us his kind of time and assistance today. So, without further ado, let's jump in to the first poll. I turn to my associate Ross. Ross, could you fire at the poll? The first poll is, what are the 2 biggest issues or frustrations with optimizing an SAB? So we're just kind of keen to know, how you guys feel about optimizing SABs and any issues that you've got. So if you could just answer those questions, that would be great. Looking forward to kind of seeing the poll and seeing how people get assigned to vote. People are starting to vote now, which is good. Voting numbers are going up. We've got about 10% people voted. So if everyone could share their votes, that would be fantastic. 20%, wonderful, guys. Thank you very much. We really want to get to about 70%. So everyone could put their fingers on the buzzers. That would be wonderful. Okay, we're up to 40%. Going up nice and quick. Thank you very much, guys. Up to 50%. Let's really try and get up to 70%. So if you haven't answered those questions, I would really appreciate it. That gives us a nice big sample size, so we can kind of report back to you, and you can get an understanding for how the issues that you face are faced and fared by others. So really good, valuable insights and information to be kind of gleaned from the audience that we have today, not just from the speakers. Okay, we'll come up to the minute mark. We're literally about to hit 70%. Great, we've hit 70%. Okay, so Ross, let's close the poll down. And we'll go back to the slide deck, and we'll go on to the first part of the agenda. Okay, so the first part was a bit of a kind of recap of what the kind of main challenges are that sort of face SABs. So a lot of kind of questions and kind of discussion online about the whole location issue. Should you hide a location? Should you not hide a location? If you hide a location, how does that impact your ranking? Does that kind of put you on the back foot versus businesses that are prepared to kind of openly display their location? How does that drip down into kind of citation strategy? How does that affect your overall kind of optimization work that you do? Also, kind of look at kind of location strategies, and that stuff looks at how do you kind of manage single location versus multi-location? How do you manage location strategy when it comes to your own website? How do you build sort of independent landing pages? How do you get good, unique content for each of the locations that fundamentally does a very similar thing? So how do you kind of create that kind of nice, unique content for the kind of search engines to hook onto? How do you get your ranking, your kind of service area coverage configured correctly so you can get the widest and the best possible ranking for all the locations that you serve as an SAB? Citation building without an address, and also kind of reviews and reputation management, which is going to be, I think, a big area of the discussion today. Okay, so let's start off by looking at place page optimization. I'm just going to apologize in advance. I've actually got a bit of a cold and a sore throat today, so if I start sounding a little bit croaky, I might just duck off for a drink. So a few kind of key things to discuss here, and I'm probably going to draw both Matthew and Linda in to this while we're waiting for kind of Thomas to join us. So a quick fire question for you both. So for Matt, do you feel it's better for ranking to display your address or hide it? Or does it really depend on your sector and situation?
I say it depends. You know, in the past, if you hit your address, I did notice, you know, a drop in rankings occasionally. However, currently in today's environment, you know, if you hide your address because you're supposed to or need to or want to, I don't find that you have a drop in rankings anymore within Google Places, or I guess Google Local Plus. So it just really depends, and there's pros and cons to both, right? So some people think, oh, showing an address as well shows more trust, or you might get more visitors if they see your address. But at the same time, you know, if you're a service business area and your address is not in the area that you're servicing, it may also benefit you by not sharing your address if you can still show up for that particular city that you're targeting for. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and we're going to come on to dive a lot deeper into that. Linda, what's your kind of view on that from your experience, and obviously, you know, through all the traffic you get in the kind of forum about the whole, you know, should you not display your address? Linda?
She might be on mute. No? Oh, well, Miles, you know, with the address too, there are some rules in terms of service around whether you're supposed to hide your address or not. And basically what I tell my clients, or the clients works down, is like, do you expect to get visitors at your office? If the answer is no, generally speaking, you should hide your address. There are some gray areas, particularly if you're not using, you know, actual address and it's a virtual address, you definitely want to hide your address, you know, in that case. But
and sorry, I was muted. I thought I was unmuted. What I was saying is, we'll talk about the reasons you must hide your address, but in terms of ranking specifically, Google says it no longer affects ranking, and I've seen tons of hidden addresses ranking in the A spot, and if anybody needs proof, Google Plumber, San Marcos, California, and usually the top 3, ABC, are hidden and the lower ones are showing address. So it really doesn't hurt your rankings, but it can have pretty severe ramifications if you don't abide by the guideline.
How do you, if you're a relatively kind of newbie or a business owner kind of coming to this, you know, for the first time, how are you able to determine whether your business is one that should or shouldn't hide its address? You know, where can you go to kind of get that information and insight?
Well, I can explain that a little bit if it's okay if I jump in.
Yeah, sure.
Technically, if you don't service customers at your address, you need to hide your address. And more specifically, and this is Linda advice, not specific Google advice, but I would say if it's a home-based business, you absolutely must hide address. Even if you're a carpet cleaner and you say, well, occasionally clients drop off a rug here, it doesn't matter. A map maker, volunteer, or a Googler is going to look on maps, and if it looks like a house, then they don't know you see customers there. So home-based business must hide address. Service area business where you only go out to customers must hide address. The only area that's a little gray or where I'd say you can show address is, for instance, if you're a plumber and you do have an actual commercial office that's staffed full-time, and maybe customers come in to buy parts or whatever, but it has to be a full-time staffed consumer walk-in office to be able to show address.
you have to be able to see customers there at all times. Yep.
How about a situation, say, I don't know, let's say you're a kind of massage therapist, and you might work from home, but you've got a room that you use, but also you've got one of those big traveling boards that you can take out, you know, traveling sort of bed type things that you can go to someone else's location. Is there a kind of grey area that Google's aware of for certain industries that might have that pattern of behavior?
Actually, massage therapists, and another good example is photographers who might have a studio at their house, but usually they're out shooting weddings and whatever. So my rule of thumb, again, is if you go to Google Maps and look at satellite view, if it looks like a house, how in the world could a Google moderator whose job it is to stamp out spam, how did they know this photographer or massage parlor really does see clients and the other ones doesn't? So
do you think they
when
apply a
in
general
doubt,
rule?
hide address.
Fine. Okay, so you think for their efficiency they have to apply a general rule based on the typical behavior within your industry.
Yeah. Exactly, and the algo isn't really good at unique fringe cases. So again, in the majority of cases, if it's a home business and it's a traditional service type business, especially if it's a one person business, which Google isn't going to know if it is or not, but if it is a one-person business, that person is usually out with customers. So Google's main issue is they don't want miles to find somebody on maps, drive across town to find a little apartment and nobody's home.
Yeah, it's about user experience. I mean, you have to tell the client at the end of the day, choose a business model, right? Are you a service area business model or are you a destination? So, there's massage therapists out there that have an office and that's where they perform all their practicing. People come to see them, and then there's others that go out. I understand there's some of them out there that may do a combination of both, but if they want to play in Google Places that way, then they really need to choose one or the other. They have to make a decision for themselves, which is better. And at the end of the day, it's a user experience. Like, I wouldn't want that either if I was thinking to go and book an appointment with a massage therapist and I see it on the address, it has lots of good reviews, it shows that it's open, and I drive there and I find out that it's, some house or apartment and they're not really there. It'd be a little bit disappointing, right? So
exactly. So how do you approach that? How do you approach that issue with your clients? Because you handle marketing for SABs in a number of different sectors. If I'm right.
If it's service area business and they don't have an office that people come to, like staff technicians, like if it's just a single electrician type deal, then we hide the address. But we do have clients where like Linda said, it's a plumber place and there's 10 or 15 technicians out of there. There's an office, receptionist, customers do come in and pay their bills. They're open 9 to 5, typical business hours. Then we'll show the address. So that's basically what we look at, and that's how we make the decision, which is the appropriate choice. It's really not brain surgery.
No, that's fine. I mean, do you get much pushback from customers, or you having a different sort of opinion and you having to kind of put your position to them and explain it?
No, the only time you get pushback is when you get people who are spamming, right? They're trying to rank in additional areas with virtual offices. That's the only time you get pushback, right? So people try to, defend it in a way that it's okay, but that's the only time you get any of those problems. But no, not really.
Okay, so on the kind of expanding the topic of of virtual offices and PO boxes, what's been your experience in the last say 12 months or in the last 24 months, and the strategies that you use? Have you ever in the past, I'm not saying now, used PO boxes, tried them out, tried virtual offices? Have they worked? Have they not worked? What's your current sort of view on those? That's for Matthew, by the way.
Yeah. So of course, I've definitely experimented with PO boxes and virtual offices and spammed the crap out of Google Places in my career. Do I participate in doing that anymore? No, absolutely not. It's something that's very clear against their terms. Do I, maybe have some clients who still participate in that, and does it work? Yes. Do I recommend it as a way to do it? Well, not really, but I guess it's risk. Some businesses are willing to take the risk to participate that way. But I say that if you really want to be, in that city, get an address for yourself. Even if it is a virtual address that you hide for a service business area. Like, let's say, there's two sister cities side by side. Your main office happens to be in, I'll use Toronto as an example. We have some, cities that spread on the outside like Scarborough, Etobicoke, and Mississauga. Let's say you want to show up in those larger cities too that Google is seeing as separate cities. Well, in that case, you could get an office there that is virtual. Just don't use, something obvious like a PO box or UPS. Hide your address and then work off of it that way if you want. But at the same time, again, my advice is always to people is just focus on the first location first and try and get one right and correct.
Sure. How does Google detect to detect or understand about certain locations are likely to be used by spammers? What's the sort of strategy and learning
I think they're smart enough to know, where UPSs are and PO boxes are based on the other information they have. And there's a lot of crowdsourcing that goes on with Mapmaker to determine that, as well as with Google Street View. It's not hard for them to Google it and look and see that there's a UPS office there. It doesn't mean that you couldn't have a legit business above it or in the back. And I don't think they personally, that's why having UPS or PO boxes still can work, as long as you don't put PO box in the address bar when you're entering it. It can work, but it's not the be-all and end-all at the end of the day. I believe the core citation information, anyways, is phone number and DBA, and that's just like a large office building to begin with, right, Miles? I mean, you can have thousands and thousands of businesses in this one building, or even shared office spaces.
Yeah, that's fine. And there's a lot of kind of discussion, with this discussion about location, it's pretty much all focused around Google. There's very little sort of discussion about strategy for handling address on Yelp, City Search, other kind of top tier sort of citations. Do these guys not have the same sort of focus on it? Do they not have the same rules and regulations around certain industry types?
Most of them do. There may be some that's savvy. I think Phil has an awesome post on which ones allow you to hide your address, but most of them don't. And then even when you are, later on doing your off-page Google Places optimization with citations, you're still going to want to submit to places with the address. I've never had like a client who said, "Oh, I don't want to be submitted anywhere with my address," So it's kind of a weird catch-22, right? I mean. Yeah, we still submit them, even though you hide it. Even though we hide an address on Google Places, we're still submitting for citations everywhere else and all the other places with the address.
Sure. So one of the said some of my clients are based in mountain areas and they can only receive mail through a PO box. What would be your advice for them? You can put your address and then your mailing address on the second line in Google Places, and that usually can work. So there's two lines to enter your information. So the first line, put your address, but then put mailing address. You can even write in mailing address to the second line, so that's the way you can get your postcard and verify it. It's definitely a challenge. Linda, do you have some insights on how to handle that?
Yeah, definitely. The Google Support Troubleshooter has a verification troubleshooter, and of course now there's phone support. Yeah. So you can totally get verified over the phone through support or through the troubleshooter, but the address in your dashboard needs to be wherever the business is physically located.
Yeah. And you know what? The phone support is actually excellent. My team is on phone support with Google Places every day, and we find that they're really quite good today at fixing these problems quite effectively and quickly. And you can verify it lots of ways. Like, even if it's a different email address and you have the domain, you can upload a file like your email, even if it's a free email, to the domain at the root to get verification. They got lots of ways to work with you to verify that you're the correct owner of it and to get it active and open that you can use it. Right, Linda?
I'm sorry, I was typing.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. You know what? I'm going to jump in there because I'm going to move us on to the next bit, which is actually about kind of setting service area within your kind of place page. What are the kind of rules of thumb, Matt, in terms of I guess how for a typical business? Now, how close or how far should a business be from a city to rank for city-based searches? So I guess is there a sort of general rule of thumb that you're in a certain distance from the city you should be ranking, or is it depend on the density of population, the density of businesses?
Yeah, it's really that's a great question, and there's there's so many different scenarios and cases where you see something different happening, but obviously
what factors influence it?
I think the closer you are to the city core definitely helps. I think proximity does help, but I've also seen businesses that, as far as 25 kilometers, 25 miles away from what they're saying the core is can rank just fine too. So, if you have enough trust with your listing and age is a factor as well, you can.
So the age of your domain or the age of your place's profile?
I find it's the age. It's the age of your place's profile, not necessarily claimed. It doesn't have to be claimed. It could be unclaimed, but it's just the history of that DBA as well as the address and phone number being there, that NAP information, and them finding it for a very long time in the past can allow can definitely help rankings.
Can really add weight. How
As-
about the sort of
yeah.
type of type of industry that you're in and the kind of competitiveness of the industry?
I bet you the radius is. I bet you they adjust it for that. I can almost guarantee it, because I bet you they look at the user experience based on category, and I'm pretty sure. I haven't really looked at this too much, but that's a great question. I bet you it's different for restaurants versus it being something like a plumber. You know what I mean? An SAB. I'm sure they have that built in, but I'm not certain for sure.
Okay. So what, for a business that is, say, located in a suburb outside of the kind of, the sort of city centre, what kind of 3 tips would you give to that business owner or someone optimizing for that site? 3 things for them to focus on to kind of get that business ranking.
Okay, sure. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to look at what's ranking already, obviously, because the best predictor of what's going to work is looking at who's already there. So, for example, if you're in a suburb area and you don't see any suburb addresses at all that are ranking within that 7-pack, then you probably might want to get an address that's closer. Or vice versa, you're in the city and you want to rank in other suburb areas, and you go and look and you go, oh, okay, there's no main city addresses that are ranking there, then you may need to have an address that's closer, right? So that may be something that you want to look at initially, determine before you start setting up your listing and before you start building citations, because it's very hard to undo that information once it's been done. You can add to it, but you can't. It's tough to undo work.
Hey, Miles, can I weigh in on service area settings?
Yeah, go for it.
Because we're getting a lot of questions about that. So the first thing to realize is if you set up 3 cities or 20 cities, or like someone just asked, 200 zip codes, Google will calculate the exact middle of that area, and that's where it's going to put your map marker, even if it's in the middle of the desert or a forest or out in the boonies, which is not going to look good to somebody who's searching for someone central. So the best service area setting is your city and 20-mile radius. It doesn't matter. Someone else asked, how do you set service area for national? It doesn't matter how big you set that service area. That won't impact your ranking 1 iota. You're still typically going to only rank in the city your address is located in, depending on competition for that keyword and everything. So the best idea is your city, 20-mile radius. I'll give you a tip though. The default Google puts in is your city and zip. So if your zip is out on the southeast end of town, it's going to put your map marker way down in the southeast corner of town in the middle of that zip. If you delete the zip and just leave the city you're in, it's going to put your map marker smack downtown. So you'll look nice and central for anyone that's searching on maps.
Great.
That's good. That's a good tip. Great tip.
So Zinder, are you always an advocate then of using the kind of distance setting option in the dashboard rather than pasting in a series of zip codes?
Definitely.
Okay, and another thing you kind of answered a second ago, I just wanted to kind of confirm was obviously you can set your kind of distance to be many hundreds of miles versus I think down to, was it 5 or 10 miles is the sort of minimum. Does that have any impact on your ranking at all? And if you go to try and target a hyper-local market and just set your radius to 10 versus 300, does that carry any weight in your favor?
It doesn't affect ranking at all, and you can easily test it by, if you service, let's say, a 5-city area, just go to city number 5 and Google city keyword and see if there's anybody from your city 5 cities away that shows up there, or does it only show that city 3 or 4 pages back? If so, you have no chance of ranking that city.
Yeah.
And I suspect if you set the radius area really wide, it won't help you rank in those surrounding cities, but it could water down your ranking in the city you're in. So best practice is your city 20 miles.
Great advice, Linda. That's really good advice. Thank you. Just going down a list of questions that we've got coming in. Is there any kind of sort of negativity put on your listing if you regularly update or change your service area? Say you're messing around with it, just trying to get up to try and gain ranking in a kind of wide area or kind of different set of suburbs. And if you start tinkering around with it, you're in danger of kind of triggering any flags with Google that might earn you some penalties.
I don't think you're going to get a penalty from it, no, from doing it. But I've never been tinkering around. We usually follow we just follow what Linda already just said. Is if it is usually a 20, 25 mile or kilometer radius around where the business wants to serve, and so I've never been in there tweaking with it and changing it. I don't think you get a penalty for changing it, but you could affect maybe your rankings by diluting it, like Linda said, if you pick too large of a radius. Again, I've never seen anything like that necessarily happen. But
okay, fair enough. Another question I was going to talk about multi-location businesses, and this was going to get directed at Thomas. He's unfortunately sort of still not with us. Any advice on kind of effective and efficient management and setup of multiple locations in one go? Any restrictions in the dashboard or any tips to kind of ease the kind of pain of setup?
No, I think as long as you're following the rules and the guidelines, you'll always be fine. I understand some people are going to want to get virtual offices, and for those people that do want to do that, or those clients that do want to push the fringes a little bit, I would just say don't be obvious. Don't get the offices at a UPS address or some mailing area. Try and maybe get a shared office space that other businesses are actually in. And make sure you're not sharing any phone numbers. You have a 100% unique phone number that's associated with your DBA, and then turn off, hide your address, and you'll probably be okay if you build enough citations and get enough trust and age and some reviews on your listing, and you can rank it just fine.
Great. Do you always upload a unique description for each of the different locations for the same business, or how do you handle that, and does it have an impact?
Not unless they do something different or there's something specific or unique about it. If it's the same business that does the same thing, you can use the same description. And the same thing with your citations. I know there's lots of sort of people out there who talk about varying up or spinning your descriptions for citations about duplicate content being on the web and not counting as much. I don't think it applies at all to this type of stuff that we're doing. So no.
One point about descriptions on the Google Plus Local page, though, if you have multiple locations and they all have a cookie cutter description, the same business name, Google more so can have a tendency to sometimes merge locations, and then you don't have 3 locations, you just have one that's a mishmash of everything. So it is helpful to make your listings as unique as possible from the viewpoint of avoiding a merge, although merges aren't as much of a problem now as they used to be.
Yeah, but they're not going to merge it if the phone numbers always and addresses have been unique. I've never seen a merge take place. That's the only time I ever see something getting merged is from that.
Yeah, in the past they would a lot, and especially one other thing to point out with service area businesses, you have to be careful about multiple locations because technically you should have one and then set a service area. So different thing with a big plumbing chain that's nationwide, they can each, if they have an office, have their own location. But a lot of small plumbers will try and set up listings at all their employees' houses to rank in multiple cities, right. And Google is pretty good at catching that.
Yeah, and if you have real offices, I mean, you definitely should upload unique photos of the outside and inside. Google prefers the outside. You can also have a qualified or verified Google Places photographer come and shoot the inside and have it posted on your Places page too, and that'll guarantee that it's actually, you know, a unique listing. You won't have any problems getting it verified, or if you run into any problems, support will help you out and back you up that way. But
okay, great. Listen, I think that's a really good kind of in-depth analysis of place page optimization. It's good questions coming through. Hope people are getting their questions answered in the Q&A. I can see Linda and Conan doing a stellar job of answering those questions. So let's kind of move on to the next poll, actually. Ross, can you get ready for the poll? So this one is, which of these NAP tactics do you use right now? And this is all anonymous, by the way, so you know the answers you give us are not going to be sort of publicized or nothing to be kind of sort of scared or afraid of. Let me just come out of that, and hopefully everyone can see the poll. You can select one or more of the following. So I'm just keen to see, you know, who's going to be truthful out there, who's going to sort of give kind of honest answers. I'm just going to see what they're being used. Like I said, you know, also this is not going to be sort of fed back into anywhere. It's not tracked against your name in any way, shape, or form. It's just interesting to see what kind of strategies and tactics people are generally using out there at the moment. So we had 40% of people voted. Thank you guys, climbing up nicely. So people are being very honest, actually. A kind of range of answers across the spectrum there. Up to 50%. We have a little more surge. We'll do this another 20 seconds, and then we'll close the poll down. So the more votes we have, the more useful the sort of sample size and answers will be. So please, guys, do vote if you haven't voted yet. We're nearly up to 60%. I think we're going to struggle to get up to 70% at this level. Okay, you know what, we're going to close it down there. Ross, you just want to close down the poll, and then we'll jump back onto the presentation. Matthew, how are you holding up there under the brunt of guiding the ship on your own? Going okay?
Yeah.
I think you're doing a great job. And Linda,
well, we've got you and Linda in there.
Exactly. So, okay. So next we're going to get is kind of on-site optimization. When it comes to publishing your address on the site, does your advice differ for an SAB to what you advise them with Google, with what they do on Google Plus? If you say hide on Google Plus, you tell them to hide on their website, or how does your sort of strategy change when it comes to on-site?
Sure.
Just to clarify for everyone, just make sure that everyone is clear. By on the site, I mean on their website. So we're not talking about place page now. We're talking about on the customer's website.
Right.
Sorry, Matt.
I found most clients will always have their address listed. And you know what? Most consumers today understand whether it's a service area business or not too, I think. In the most cases for most businesses, it's very clear what type of business it is. But if they don't want to hide their address, they can, and you can still hide it as well in the code with schema markup, so that it can still be found in schema without actually displaying it on your website too. So you have an option.
Is that a tactic that you employ?
It is. I mean, I always put their address in schema markup on their site. If it's single location, I usually put it in the footer site-wide. If it's multi-location, I'll then put it on the individual location pages or any particular page that we're optimizing for that particular city plus keyword. Does it actually improve your ranking or not? That's to be determined. Can Google find your NAP information on your website without schema markup? Absolutely. It understands that obviously without that special markup. So you don't have to have it. It's just something just in case, or a little added boost. Maybe it might help, or if it does one day, it's there.
Sure. And is it obviously we know everyone who's read anything or been involved in kind of local search has an understanding of the importance of NAP consistency and presenting your address. Given that you're hiding your address on a Google Plus page, does that have less importance then for having it displayed on your own website?
Well, as long as your business name, your name and phone number is there, you'll be fine. I believe that's the core NAP information anyways, is name and phone, not name and address and phone. But obviously if you can get name, address, and phone number, that's even better. And the reason I say that too is there's a lot of businesses that share the same space. And Google is able to determine the difference between the two as long as they have a unique doing business as name and a unique phone number, and there's other sources from other trusted places, other citations on the web that support that data, very rarely will you have any mix-up. It only happens when there's no data that's supporting it, or in some way they shared the DBA, or it's too similar, or the phone number was the same. Then you run into challenges. So as long as that's there, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you also got clients, who are either single business or kind of multi-location, kind of SABs. How do you tackle sort of site structure, landing page, with a difference for the two of them? What are your kind of key rules that you adopt for either a single business or a multi-location SAB?
Sure. Well, I mean, single location, obviously you can have the local keyword target on all your pages, but if it's a multi-location business, you have to create a unique page for each location that you want to rank for that particular keyword. As most people probably know already, the search engines rank and index web pages, not websites, and depending on how many locations you have, you can't really rank a page for 10 or 20 different locations, or if you do, it just looks crappy and is kind of spammy, and 3, it's not very effective. So it's much more effective to create an actual unique landing page with some unique content on it that's targeting that very specific keyword and local modifier. Does that make sense? I can show you an example of a location page that.
Yeah, I tell you what, that would be good. Shall I? I tell you what I'm going to do. Just going to come out of this. I'm going to hand over. Do you want me to hand over the controls to you to take through a couple of examples?
Yeah, okay. I'll show you a couple of quick examples. Yeah.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll hand over. This can sometimes be a dangerous part. I'm just going to make you an organizer, Matthew, so you've got that.
Right.
I'm going to hand over control to you now.
Okay, so this is a multi-location business. It's a franchise that has lots of locations, about 30 locations, and this would be one particular location page that we're targeting for one particular keyword, as in like home care, London. And so we create a unique landing page. What we do is, we keep the selling information above the fold here, so you can see that we have like a nice clean headline, a video, a way to contact people, and a form. But then below the fold, what we do is we start getting into more unique content. So Silver of 20 years, we can put unique content here, some social proof, and then we put unique content here, a stat or information around there. And the way we make each page unique is we'll use like a bio or an employee feature or a case study. In this case, we're featuring the local owners of this particular franchise here, and then we use specific unique testimonials that are here too, and link out to unique places that are local as well, like linking out to local places that are not obviously your competition as well tells Google that it's not there. And then you can see here we also have this information marked up in schema, and then of course a second call to action below the fold of a mailer and your social and so forth. And you'll note that we also created this as a squeeze page, and we did that very specifically where we removed the navigation because we wanted to force people through this funnel. On this particular page we are doing call tracking, but this is done up in JavaScript, so it's okay to do. And then in schema code on the bottom we actually have the appropriate NAP information there so that Google can find it. So it works great for SEO, and it also works great for a landing page for PPC, as well as we create this for each location for each keyword that you want to do. So this is a good example of like how to create a location page. Now, if we go over to a business like, say, here's one, Avenue 5, it's a beauty school with you. There's only one location. We don't need to do that. So, we would have, we're focusing on the location on every single page. There's always a local hook for it. So hopefully that shows you a couple quick examples.
How granular do you get when you geo-target or you geo-tag sites or pages in terms of images, geotagging, the kind of Google embedded maps, etc.? Do you put a lot of time in that, or do you focus more on the kind of broader brushstrokes and kind of keywords and kind of landing page structure, and also it's not just about you're not just optimizing for Google, are you? You're also optimizing for conversion for customers visiting those pages.
Yeah, well, I always think about humans first. So I mean, whatever you guys do, always think humans first, right for humans. I hate when I go to a page and it looks like it's really obviously been written to rank locally. It makes me, it makes me cringe. It's like, you don't need to do that. Google's smart enough to know about the particular page. Like, don't over-optimize a page million local keywords just right naturally. Now, images is a great way to help the local optimization. I mean, but again, you can't just take any image and then just start labeling it, plumber, Toronto with the local modifiers and keyword load it to try and make it, seem more local, particularly if it's not even a photo of that. If it is a photo of that, or it's a photo of the van, name it appropriately, the brand name, and if it is for a particular city, you can say in that city, that's okay. But yeah, images is a great way to help. And in fact, we do a lot with images. When we're optimizing images, we rename the file before we upload it. Usually if it's JPEG, we go in and actually put the location in the file as well. Do
you put the full address in, or do you kind of put the zip code, or?
Yeah, I'll put the whole address and everything in there. Yeah. Now, and then of course when you get up on your site, you got to give it the proper alt tag as well too, right? So.
Yeah, sure.
But the main thing is just don't be spammy with it. Just be human with it. Like represent the image appropriately. I mean, at the end of the day too, these images and alt tags are really for people who are supposed to be disabled too, right? Who can't necessarily see it and they need to hear what the image is. So that's what that's what we describe to them on a computer is that alt tag. So
sure. Linda, have you got any sort of tips, advanced tips for kind of geotagging kind of content on your site?
Are we going to talk about map embedding now, or is that later?
Yeah, if you want to talk about, you had a great article recently about kind of embedding Google Maps onto your pages.
Yeah, in my local SEO training course, I teach 7 different local hooks, and one of them is how to embed the Google map properly so you get some juice out of the location. And if you embed the map right with the old classic maps, not the new maps, and I'm going to put a link in chat to an article that explains all of this. But if you use the old classic maps and you embed the map from the place page, not from the generic location, then in the embed code it actually puts the CID number, and even though the CID number is hidden now that we're in Google+, that CID number is still the all-important identifier for that specific place page. So if you embed the map right, it'll look right, plus the name and the CID number will be embedded in the map. And I think to some small degree that can help Google connect the dots and realize this place page and this organic listing should merge together so it ranks in blended. It's just one other way to give Google what I call local hooks or more location trust. And hang on, I'm getting that link and I'm going to put it in chat, and I've got a bunch of screenshots so you can see what I'm talking about.
I think it's already in there in the chat. I see it there.
Colin did it. Awesome. Thanks, Colin.
Colin's
my right-hand
finger
man.
on the buzzer. And you can still get to classic maps. Is that right, Linda? You're not forced to embed the new version of maps?
You can get to classic maps from new maps. But what I do, and I show it in that forum link Colin just gave you, I bookmark a direct link to classic maps and one to new maps, because depending on the type of research and troubleshooting I'm doing, I might need to get to one or the other. So I think it's easier to bookmark both than to constantly be jacking your settings in new maps.
Good idea. That is a good tip for kind of time saving. Matt, in terms of kind of content strategy, we talked a bit about sort of site structure, about landing page structure, right? Content on your site. How important is good, solid, localized content within your current optimization strategy? So when you're optimizing your new and existing customer, how high up is content in the prominence and the list of things to do first?
For us, it's big these days. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to be publishing content all the time to rank for your particular local keyword. Like if you're just the local plumber and the only keyword that you're after is, plumbing plus your city and that's it, you don't have to create local content. That's not going to necessarily improve that keyword that you're targeting, which is probably for your homepage to go there. However, content, having a content strategy is a very, very important, smart strategy to do today. Just simply by having math on your side. Because the search engines rank and index web pages, the more pages you have, the more keyword opportunities you have to show up for, right? So, just simply by publishing, let's say, you decide to publish 20 pages a month of content, well, that's going to create 240 new pages in a year for your website, right? Do you think a 240-page website gets more traffic than a website that is 20 pages? Well, of course it does. And it probably has more opportunities to get more natural links and mentions and citations, which builds up your domain authority and improves your rank everywhere. So what we do with clients is, we do a bunch of things to create content. One is we don't just blog for the sake of blogging. Whatever you do, I do believe that your content on your website is the number one place that you should invest before, marketing anywhere else. Before you go to Facebook and start doing other things, you need to have a solid content creation plan. But you should only publish if you really have something to say or something to add. It's a lot of people think blogging is really, they get confused. A lot of small business owners might think it's like, journaling, and that's not what we want you to do. What they should really call it is building resource pages, or things that are helpful, or evergreen content, stuff that people want to link to. Nobody wants to link to, what happened in your life today, but people do want to link to a resource page where you made something easier for people, or a list of links, or a list of ideas, and it could be really simple. A lot of the ways that we do it sometimes with our clients is we actually put a Q&A section on their website, and we'll even trick them into blogging, right, in a way. And what we do is we just post the question. So we go and do some keyword research of what are the frequently asked questions that are asked in their industry. We post the question. We say, oh, there's people posting questions on your Q&A section. Can you go answer it? They're like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll go answer it. And because they're knowledgeable what they do, they end up writing it. And what they're doing is they're creating brand new pages of valuable, resourceable content, that can help you, build internal links, attract new content. It also gives your link builders or your SEO guys assets to go and get links. It's very hard to get links today and earn links if you don't have any sort of content. So a content strategy is important.
So
I could go on forever about it.
You kind of, so yeah, obviously it's an important part of your strategy, which is great. Conan, is that you? Did you have a comment? No? Okay. So Matt, I mean, you almost kind of trick your customers a little bit into leaving the content that you want. Is that because you found that not being kind of maybe natural marketeers or natural content writers, when they're faced with the prospect of writing a blog, they freeze up a bit, or there's resistance?
Well, it's not only that. On top of that, they're busy running their businesses. They didn't start their business to be publishing 20 pages a month. And I have to tell you, most of our clients outsource that content creation to us. Like I'd say that we write 98% of the content that go on our client's site. So whether it's from evergreen content or link bait or even creating their videos, we do it for them. Because and really that's the way it should be anyways. They should be contracting them. Their time is more better spent running their business and growing their sales and doing other things that are business related. But
how do you given say you're a multi-location business, or whether a business is trying to rank in a number of different sort of suburbs and areas for say a limited set of search terms, how can you go about kind of creating good, decent, unique content for each of these landing pages, which is effectively pretty similar?
Yeah, so that's what we just did with the retired home example that we did. So we have all the selling information above the fold. That's the same on every single page. But below the fold, what we do is then we put unique content. You can still add value to unique content. You can do it through driving directions, unique reviews or testimonials, case studies, features on employees, local laws, linking out to local resources, using unique FAQs. There's all kinds of things that you can do below the fold to make sure the content is valued. The last thing you want to do is just take the same piece of content over and over and over again and just change out the local modifiers. I mean, nothing sucks more than that. I mean, that just is really lazy and sucks balls. So if you're doing that, stop it. And if your SEO is doing it, tell them to stop it and do a better job. So.
Great. Everybody, I would like to welcome Thomas Ballantyne to the webinar. Thomas is here.
Thomas, an hour late, Thomas. We're glad you made it.
Thomas, are you okay? Can you hear us?
Maybe it was a time zone issue?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I'm hoping he seems to be unmuted. Thomas, are you with us? Maybe not yet. Maybe I've
Maybe
jumped the
not
gun.
yet.
I got carried away. I was so excited.
I kind of see him there.
I can see his name in the list of attendees, a panelist next to it. So, Thomas, if you can hear us, we're very, very delighted to have you. Got some questions lined up. We're kind of part way through the webinar already, but would love to have your unique viewpoint. So, let us know. Please pipe up. You're unmuted whenever you've got good connection. Okay. Let's hope he heard that. Okay, so that's I guess the next part is kind of call tracking, kind of do's and don'ts. A couple of questions come through about kind of call tracking. I was going to ask this question to sort of Thomas. Thomas has been working for marketing for SABs for 8 years, so he's no doubt tried and tested pretty much every tactic kind of in the book. Thomas, I can hear someone typing. Is that you? Or it's Linda? Well, Matt, first to you. What's your kind of? Do you ever use call tracking?
I do. I use it all the time. Absolutely. I mean, I use it for a couple very good reasons, and I think it's really actually important that businesses use it. I'm an advocate of it when used right. So you can't get, especially with a lot of service-based businesses, like if you're talking a plumber or electrician or anything to do with the home improvement business, I mean, I'd say the majority of it is 80% of it is phone calls. So if you don't have a good call tracking system in there where you're tying it back to, where your calls are coming from, you don't really fully know what's working and what's not working. So absolutely invest in it. It's very cost-effective and easy. But what you have to do is you have to do it in JavaScript. Use JavaScript so that it's not being picked up on your website, and you only do it on your website. Don't put call tracking on your citations or your Google Places listing or other places like that. So if you do that, you're definitely going to shoot yourself in the foot. If you follow those, simple best practices, you'll be okay. And most call tracking services today would know how to best handle that for you and guide you on that if you don't know how.
Great. So you find it an invaluable source of, well, obviously leads come through anyway, but in terms of kind of tracking the effectiveness.
Yeah. For us, so Miles, for us, we track, like in analytics, we track back all the traffic and we give it a goal value. And I know a lot of businesses don't have this stuff set up right, but if you have analytics stuff set up right and you've goals and you have a value to the goals, and what I mean by that, you can even do this on service-based businesses. I've got some businesses where we have it really, really close by working with the client, tweaking with it. So what we say to the client is this: we go, look, let's put call tracking on there, the web forms on there, we have event tracking on the email. So we're pretty much tracking all the traffic that comes to the website and how it turns into a lead for them. And what we say is, hey, give us your sales over the last 12 months or 24 months. We divide it by 12 or 24, and we say, how many leads do you approximately get, or we look at their data of how many leads they normally get, divided by that, that gives us a goal value. You add it into Google Analytics or whatever tool you're using, and you have a value. At the end of the month, you come back to them, you have a meeting, you say, hey, our tool is saying that you did this much in sales, how close are we? And then you start adjusting that goal value over the next couple of months until you get it really tight. This way you can give a goal value to every single lead that comes in on every single keyword, no matter whether it's coming through PPC or AdWords or Google Places or wherever it is. So if you don't do call tracking, you're missing a whole section of the pie and don't really know what's going on with your business. And you can't make the best decisions of what's working or what's not working. So I think it's ridiculous not to invest in call tracking.
Do you use different call numbers for different sources of traffic? So, for example,
yeah.
So you have one number set up as if someone comes direct from Places, or if someone comes from Yelp, or someone comes from kind of AdWords.
No, the different numbers are not on different citations. The different numbers are on the website. So once they get to the website, I can't. If they call you direct from Yelp, I can't track that. So if they go to Yelp, they see your business listing, it has the NAP information that's there, and they phone you, we wouldn't know if that was working or like whether that was an actual number or not.
Sure,
now, if you're a brand new business out there and you're tuning in, what I would do if I had a brand new business or if I was building a brand new franchise, I would buy static numbers for each one of those franchises and own them and keep them and submit them on the Google Places. That way I can track that information as a static number within the call tracking center as well. What ends up happening is if businesses ever change hands or you sell a franchise or one closes down and you resell it, you just have to redirect where that call tracking number is going. You don't have to worry about changing any of the NAP information out there across the web. So if you're a brand new business, I would totally, set up a static call tracking number as well as a pool of numbers as well for your website in JavaScript so you can see where the calls are coming from. Because if you use a pool in JavaScript, each new visitor gets served up a unique phone number based on their IP address, and then we can tell the source and keyword that they came from, which is really powerful.
So that's what I was alluding to, is not on the citations, but on your own site. So if I'm a visitor, I go to Yelp, I click on your URL in Yelp, go to your website. Are you then serving me a different number than if I came from Google+?
No, not in your citation. I'm not serving you a different number, so it's the same local number.
No, but if I come from a different source to your website.
Oh, and you hit my website is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you come to my website, you come up. Yes, it'll be a different number every time that you land on it. That's right. Yep. So I can tell where you came from and what happened. Also, just so you know, call tracking is more than just that too. I have to add this in there. You think I sold call tracking? I don't. But the other most important thing. So this is, I know a lot of people are on this call are actual like agencies or SEOs who do what we do, and call tracking is not only there to prove your value and the leads and to get the data. It's also there for the business owners, because I can't tell you how many times they're unaware of how they answer the phone. And if you can show them data on how many leads they're losing because A, they're not answering the phone, or 2, they're stuck in the call system, or 3, they're going to voicemail, or B, how they're answering the phone and the reception's handling the phone, immediately the behavior changes, and then you have more value, because a lot of times they'll come back to you and say, oh, I see what you're doing, but I'm just not getting more, I don't seem to be making more money. I know you're, well, I go, hey, dude, you're not answering your phone. It goes to voicemail 90% of the time. How about answer the phone, right? So, there's a lot of other values to it out that besides just the tracking. But, when it comes to optimization for local, you definitely, want to only do it on your website, not your citations. That's the takeaway.
Are there any penalties for Google detecting different numbers in the kind of JavaScript, or appearing to be kind of masking that data?
So Google's getting better understanding of reading JavaScript, but from my understanding, no, there's not going to be any penalty for doing so, from my understanding. And I don't think there should be in the future. They understand the value of it and why you would do it, and why would they. Yeah.
Do you recommend any partners, any call tracking solutions? I mean,
sure. So I can tell you, I use 2 vendors. So I use Call Measurement, which is that's not the actual name. That's the back end of it. I can't think of it right now, but I bet you if you looked up Call Measure, you could probably reverse engineer the actual company. I think it's Sentry something. Fantastic, amazing analytic tool. And they also have this element called Humanatic, which basically means that they crowdsource human reviews on the calls, and I can send more detailed analytics to my clients about whether they suck or not on answering their phone. And then the other one I use as well is CallRail, which is really cost effective. You can do that. And I also know there's other things that you can do too that you can tie into, I can't remember the other product that's really cost effective that you can do it, but I like CallRail. It's really, really inexpensive and a great product, and it works great. You can do the single tracking numbers, or you can do the pool of numbers there and tie it into Google Analytics quite easily.
Okay. A lot of people, by the way, if you're not monitoring the question module, people are putting in their own sort of suggestions there. Matthew's one said it's Sentry Interactive, apparently, Matthew.
Yeah, that's
Ben
it.
Wright.
Yep.
Thank you to Ben Wright for answering that for us.
Thanks.
And CallRail was the other one. So there's a few others in there. People have nominated things like kind of call tracking metrics, ifbyphone.com. So a good few suggestions coming in from the audience. So thank you everyone for venturing that. I'll just see if Thomas is with us. Thomas, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Hey,
We can, Thomas. We are very delighted to have you.
I completely apologize. My calendar said 1 o'clock for some reason with that time conversion, and apparently it was 12. So
well,
I owe you one. You guys can put me on a panel whenever you want.
That's all right. Matthew has done a stellar job of answering questions. He's probably been exhausted. So, but it's lovely to have you here, Thomas.
I've been playing the Thomas role.
Yeah, because don't worry, actually, Thomas.
I apologize
Thomas,
again.
Your kind of main kind of bit is coming up in a minute anyway. So we've just kind of finished on this section, and we're kind of running a little bit behind time. So we're going to jump on to the next bit, which is kind of citation options and strategies. And Thomas, just to make sure you're clear, we've been through looking at kind of place page optimization. We've obviously just done a kind of on-site optimization, and then we've got citations and then kind of review strategy.
Yeah, I'm up to speed on the slides, and I've been listening to the call tracking debate, and it's a interesting debate. You always give up something for your tracking, but it's almost always worth knowing where the money's coming in.
Yeah, is that something that you employ in your business in Bulwark?
I actually developed internally a whole call tracking system. When I looked at call tracking 5 years ago, it wasn't up to speed with what I wanted to do with it. So we have our own proprietary call tracking system now.
Okay, but it's something that you get great value from having in the business. It helps you move your business forward in the right direction by having that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he was saying that even on the side where you're saying where you can go to the business owner and say, hey, look, we missed this many calls. Hey, we have a peak call volume between this time and this time.
Yeah,
you need to have more staff on between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock because we have too many people going to voicemail. And there's all kinds of other metrics with call tracking that are very
really important. Yeah, really important, Thomas. Even just auditing your calls or even sending it to, I can't tell you how many times that we've sent recordings to a few receptionists and said, you know, look, you can't do this. And if you didn't send them where they heard themselves, they won't change the behavior. It changes right away once they know they're even being recorded that way. So
right.
it's great.
My boss always says if it's measured, it will be improved. So
yeah.
Wise words, wise words. So on to kind of citations next, and you know, given that many SABs kind of hide their addresses, you know, and you know, what value do citations really have for an SAB, and do they have as much value for an SAB as they do for a non-SAB? Thomas, you know, from your own kind of sort of marketing, you know, how much kind of value in stock do you put in citation strategy or in building citations?
I think you have to prove to Google that you are a real business at a real location. I think hiding your address is a bad idea in general for businesses. That Google is going to give you a higher priority if they know who you are and they can trust who you are. So citations are huge. Google's changed this quite a bit over the last few years, what citation sites they trust more than others. They used to just crawl the entire internet and basically say, oh, this is an address, what can we match it up with? But it's still very valuable to have citations anywhere and everywhere you can.
Do you, I'm right thinking that you've got, for all the different locations you cover, do you always have a physical location, or do you have like home workers, for example, that will serve their area, or have you always got like a manned office for each location?
We've got a physical location for every metro that we're in. We, early on, probably about 6 years ago, we tried using home addresses. It worked then for a little bit, but then Google kind of came back and said, no, these aren't legitimate addresses, even though they were serving out of their houses and everything else. We do have branch managers that serve out of their houses. So that's kind of a tricky question. We pick a primary location now for every metro that we're in and say this is our address, and we do have physical locations, so it works. I try not to muddle it up too much with any other information that might conflict with that, because if you have multiple addresses showing up for the same city, Google's going to have to weigh between the three of them. Instead of having duplicate content, they're going to split it 3 ways instead of having one solid address.
Sure. And I'm right in thinking that you guys have expanded a fair amount, so you've got some older locations and some newer locations. Is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And even within the last few years in some of our locations, our main location has had to move because we've expanded so much.
Okay, so even I guess I was leading into a question about how your strategy for citations differs from a well-established, long-in-the-tooth location versus a relatively new one. How do you approach kind of citations for either scenario?
Ideally, you want to go up and clean up all the crap that was out there, your old addresses.
And presumably, as the example you just gave, when you establish a business that moves locations, that becomes a pretty big task.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was that almost the first thing you did once you kind of did the relocation? Was that your kind of one of the biggest tasks you had to undertake?
I would, if you're relocating, this isn't from me taking it personally. I don't know if there's a Google best practice for this, but we would usually spread that relocation out over some time. So I would hold on to the old address and that old location while establishing the new one, and then roll everything over to the new one. Because I would rather not lose in the interim with a hard break. I'd rather not lose any rankings because of an address change.
That was smart, Thomas. That's really smart to do. That's a good tip, that you could do that. So did you use a new unique number then for the new location instead of trying to port that old number over, and then what you do is just forward that number to the new number once you establish the new location so that you didn't have any downtime between the two locations?
Yeah, if I'm doing a new location, I'm getting a brand new phone number for it.
Yeah, yeah, good idea.
And are you then, I mean, presumably other location closing down, are you trying to amend the address to the new address, or are you just creating whole new citations from scratch?
I tried to amend the address.
Yeah. So you can retain the value built up in those existing citations.
Yeah, it's and again, it reduces the confusion, and as you said, it builds the value, because if that page if that insider page that you've been on for the last 5 years has old information on it, Google's going to attach that old information to an old listing and block it at that point. Joel Headley asked specifically on this because I was moving locations and I was asking him questions about it. They will take information associated with an address, and basically when that address is closed, they basically dump all that into a holding spot and it doesn't go any further. It's going to block. It's basically going to, he says it just basically goes and sticks in this basket that holds information because they don't want to lose it, but it's not going to carry forward.
Right.
Interesting. And then that can be, and you say blocks, that block the new address or and impact the ability for the new address to rank?
No, they don't want to. They don't like duplicate content. They don't want to show you twice for the same city, so they would prefer to just have one location. It doesn't. I don't think it really hurts your new address. It's not helping it though. I'd rather have the older listing associated with a new address, that older page associated with a new address, than have a new page associated with a new address.
Got you. Totally clear on that now. So yeah, thanks for that. And in terms of your citation sort of strategy, Thomas, obviously you say kind of cleaning up kind of incorrect information is a primary importance. How do you approach which sites you want to be on? Do you have a target list for all the different locations you have, or do you kind of go and do unique research for each individual location that you kind of start up or bring on board? How do you approach citations, and also how many citations are you looking to go and get, and how do you figure that out?
Those are excellent questions. I do have my pet locations. I think I've shared that somewhere online before. I don't have it in front of me right now. I have my pet locations, and then I do go and look. I do research on other businesses in my area and what sites they're getting citations on. So kind of it's the same thing that White Sparks does. White Sparks does it for you. I just go straight to the source and I use Google to do it.
Fair enough.
So for us, Miles, what we do, we have sort of best practices that we follow for most businesses. But what we'll do is we do an audit first, make sure the information's clean across the web. If it's not clean anywhere, we try and clean it right away, particularly at the sources. So we'll look at the data aggregators. So InfoUSA, Factual, Axum, Localese are the main feeds. We clean it up there first. Then often what we'll do is we'll then next look at, what are the citations the competitors have, not only in that particular city, but some of the sister cities. Pick those off and then start going through the top sort of 50 or 60, and then, you can continue to get, you can continue to keep going through and being creative after that. But if you're building citations, what you want to really focus on is relevancy, and you want to look at, your category that you're in for citations that are appropriate, as well as, the city that you're in to get citations from those sources, and you really can get it from anything that way. So that's what we do here, and it works great for us if we follow that. And start with the competitors that are ranking well, because a lot of times they're doing the least amount of work and getting the best amount of effort. So you want to look at that first, if that makes any sense. You want to look at, who's having the best results across all cities like that, like, or the backlinks to a major brand like limo.com or something like that. You wouldn't pay attention to that, or the citations that they have. Pay attention to the little guys in each city that are showing up with the least amount of effort. Look at their citations, because if you duplicate those ones, you'll probably get the quickest results.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree with that.
That's great advice. And we actually ran for those of you out there who didn't attend our citation webinar, about 3 webinars back, we did a great kind of look at kind of citations and kind of citation strategy. That webinar recording and sort of slide deck is available on Bright Local. We also did a survey of about relative top 20 kind of local search experts, asking them about their kind of attitudes and approach and thoughts about kind of citations and how it's changing. And the kind of overriding thing was people are kind of moving towards away from having a kind of sheer quantity of citations to kind of quality and accuracy of citations. So making sure that your data is kind of clean and accurate in as many places as possible. Then making sure you're listed on the kind of top 20, 30, 40 sites as a kind of primary focus. Having that kind of long tail of sites is useful, particularly when you're in a competitive industry or kind of competitive market, because having that extra volume of citations adds a little bit more kind of incremental weight to your particular listing. But if you're going to focus on one or two things, it's kind of quality over quantity, and it's probably accuracy and completeness again over kind of quantity. So that's where you should probably be kind of focusing your efforts.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great, guys. Question from Matt. Do you focus more on organic optimization for an SMB than you do for other local customers, or do you find that actually your strategy doesn't change that much because citations still have value for them?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, if you're trying to rank within like the 7-pack in Google Places, citations are usually your best bet first over links. But I mean, if you have enough quality links from trusted places, you can outrank even a Google 7-pack ranking. So you see organic listings ranking just fine too. We do both and apply both. As long as you're doing it in a organic, natural way, you'll be fine. And there's lots of opportunities with search operators and just reading in between the lines of what's working already. Again, it's not necessarily about volume, like you said. It's about accuracy and quality. But citations versus links, you need to do both. Is my answer. It's not one or the other, but local usually relies more on the citations within the Google 7-pack. So
citations and links rather than citations versus links. Another question in the.
I think on the links. I think on the links you really have to be careful these days. So I even in the past have built citations that I'm building myself with no links strictly because I want it to look natural. One, and two, a lot of competitors aren't going to be smart enough to figure out where you're linking from or where you're getting citations from, but they can see where you're linking from. I mean, anybody can go into Majestic SEO and see all your backlinks, but not anybody can go in and see all your citations.
Yeah. You can also just, you can block yourself from most of those scraping tools if you don't want your competitors to see your links. And, that's a very good point about the citations. And citations are actually getting spammed out there. And I've seen spamming citations work where people will take like an industry blog network in the auto industry or something like that, post a whole bunch of, sort of content, whether it's scraped or, spun or crap, and they just throwing in the citations with no links. And I've seen businesses rank very well locally with a lot of those citation sources from some sort of content that's relevant even on blog networks. And you can't get a citation from any source, anything is considered, like if you remember way back, Thomas, you must remember this, before all this, when it was places pages and there was like Google Maps places, they used to list all the citation sources that said, here's the other mentions from around the web. And you could see it all. They would, pick up comments, forum stuff, document sharing stuff, YouTube videos.
That was beautiful back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah. It showed you everything, right? So that still applies today, but I'm just saying you don't want to spam the web. What I would do is, before you get to doing that or needing to go there, look at the quick wins. Look at what Google's already telling you is working. Look at those competitors that are not doing it, because there's always a couple guys who rank there who have 30 citations and no backlinks. Why are they ranking? There's something they're doing that you need to pay attention to, that you need to do or get the equivalent of.
Sure. I would just like to have a quick sales pitch for Bright Local. For those of you who haven't used us, we have a tool called Citation Tracker, which allows you to identify existing citations you've got, citations your competitors have, and there's also a new feature where you can put an old address, an old kind of business name, and you can look for those kind of old obsolete citations. So please check that out. It's called Citation Tracker. It's part of our kind of bundled set of tools.
I forgot I was talking to Miles here, and then Miles actually provided.
Don't worry. I had to kind of bite my tongue when you mentioned that.
I use just so you guys know, I use all the tools that are available out there. So we use Bright Local as well as WhiteSpark, as well as GeoRanker and Places Scout. But we find use in all of them, and our team uses them daily. So all good tools.
Very diplomatically put, Matthew.
I know how much I love Majestic SEO, so I can only imagine what that does on the citation side.
We're powerful. So very quickly, going to jump into the reviews. We're running out of time. This is a quick slide that will come. Basically, this is actually taken from Local Visibility System, which is written by Phil Rozak. A fantastic blog. I love this blog. If you don't check it out every day, you really should do. This is a list of US citation sites that are private. So these are ones where you can actually kind of hide your address. I think this was written in about April of this year, so I can't vouch whether it's all completely accurate. I've actually got our citation team doing some research at the moment to see if we can extend this list out and also create a list for Canada, Australia and the UK, where we also kind of do sort of citation building as well. So our citation guys are building out this list at the moment through the kind of research that they do. So hopefully in a week or so we'll have a nice, hopefully extended list of this. So if anyone who regularly works on a kind of SAB businesses, we'll be posting some blogs on Bright Local about that. So be kind of sure to look out for that. I think Linda's got the link through, the bit.ly link through to this particular blog post, so hopefully she can stick that in the chat window for everyone. Okay, so reviews and reputation is kind of the final section. Thomas, I know that your reviews are a big part of your strategy, and we've got a few slides for you to kind of talk about in a second. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to Matt. Matt, how important are reviews in your strategy for clients? We stack it up against place page stuff and on-site optimization, citations. Where do reviews and reputations sit in that kind of pantheon?
Yeah, it's super important, and we're super proactive on it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want Thomas to have a chance to share some of the stuff that we talked about the other day that I think is really, really useful. But we absolutely create a review funnel for each client on their websites. If you let me share my screen, I'll quickly show everyone how it works, and then I'll just fire it back over to Thomas, and then Thomas can talk about all the other important reasons about collecting reviews. It's not just about having lots of reviews on your listing or a high score out of 5, 5 golden stars or anything like that. We all know that brings value, and obviously if people see positive reviews on your listing and more positive ones than negative ones, then you're probably going to get more phone calls. I don't know if it necessarily encourages a ranking improvement. There's no real proof of that, but click-through rate and trust, sure. So you want to be proactive on it, because most of the time when people are going to review you, the only time they're going to go out of their way to do it is if they're pissed off. So if you don't aggressively go out of your way and email them and ask them constantly and put them through some sort of review funnel, then it's going to be hard for you to to get those reviews. So right, I might not pass it to you. Because it's going to kick you out. We're
short on time. It's going to kick me out. I'm going to get upset
no problem.
if that happens.
Yeah, so I'll just describe what we do. We send them to a page where we try to mitigate the review. So we'll send them to a page that basically says, did you have a good experience or bad experience? And it'll be a thumbs up or a thumbs down as the picture. If they had a bad experience, we keep them on the site. That way we can, put them through a survey and try and make it right so that the reviews don't end up on the web. And if you're proactively asking people for feedback, you're going to find out sometimes where you're dropping the ball, and every business does it. But it's better to do that way. Now, if they had a good review, we then send them to a page where the places we want the reviews, and we put a quick screen capture video of 1 minute saying, hey, this is how you leave a review and how easy it is. Can you do it here? And we also try and ask them questions like, do you have a Gmail? If you have a Gmail, then we send them to Google. We go, do you have a Facebook or Yelp account? If so, then we send them to Facebook or Yelp or so forth. So we try to be smart about it so that we're getting them to leave reviews where they already have registered accounts, because it also lowers the rate of false positives on reviews, as well as it just makes it easier for them because they already have a spot there. Anyways, I could talk about it forever, but I want to let Thomas talk about the review stuff from him. He's got some great insights. Thomas?
Right. I'm ready. Okay, so the review strategy, I think in general what he just mentioned is very important, that business owners understand that they need to be proactive about the reviews. It's kind of, on your reputation management, it's kind of proactive reputation management. This slide, before I get into exactly how we do it, this slide and the next slide, for those that are trying to get small businesses to get reviews, they might look at it and not be as motivated if they think this is just a marketing ploy. For us in our business, we found that there was a direct correlation between our review counts and our referral rates. If you click it one more time for me, Miles. Our top 3 metro areas for quantity of reviews online end up having the highest referral rates. In fact, they broke the average, but in direct correlation, the first metro area that had the highest reviews, quantity of reviews, beat our referral rate by our average referral rate by 3 percentage points, which is huge. If you're a small business and your referral rate is 10%, and you can take that 10% and improve it by 3% simply by asking for reviews, there's more incentive right there to get reviews than just the marketing side of it.
Amazing.
And then the next slide to go along with this, when you're talking dollars to business owners, they understand that. And we found that after asking for reviews, our customer satisfaction score went up from 94% to 97% the year after. So that was a 3% increase in our customer satisfaction score. And when you're at 94%, I mean, we were at 91% at one time, and I remember how hard it was to go from 91% to 94%. And when you're at 94% and you can go 3 percentage points, that is a huge, huge shift in customer satisfaction. And if you've ever read J.D. Power's on customer satisfaction, you will find out that customer satisfaction also lends itself to more referrals, which we just saw on the last slide. It also lends itself to customer retention. So those two reasons alone, I think, are solid business reasons for asking for reviews.
Yeah, totally.
So reviews, in terms of ranking, then, is one of the many benefits of getting reviews, and it's not the kind of end game essentially for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I looked at it, I didn't even look at it as a ranking factor when I initially started doing it. I looked at it strictly from a marketing standpoint that said, you know what, if there's 5 businesses online and I have 10 reviews and nobody else has any reviews, they're going to be calling me first. And they've got to call me, even if they don't go with me, even if they're like staring at the page and there's my reviews. Even if I'm the 5th person on the page or 6th person on the page, I'm the only guy on the page with reviews. And that's when I started. This was when nobody else had reviews. So all these other benefits are things we found out later after doing the reviews.
Yeah. It's psychological too, like you said, right? I mean, it's good, is that once someone actually writes a review for you, it makes sense that the referral rate's going to go up because they physically took action on doing something. It's like writing down a goal, They say it's not going to come, true until you announce it to the world or write it down. And once you do that, you've confirmed it, so it makes sense that it's going to increase it. Can you talk a little bit, Thomas, about, what asking for reviews has done for the culture and the community and some of the technicians that work in your organization? I thought that was really insightful information the other day too.
Yeah. That's let's go to the next slide actually. So our review this lines right up with it. So our review strategy, basically when I presented this to my company, was 1, don't suck. You know what I mean? Like if you're the guy that is the waiter that's simply saying, hey, I'm gonna go to my table and say, hey, I need this tip, you know what I mean, without providing quality service, that does nothing for you. Yeah. So we got to look at what we're actually providing first and say, okay, let's make sure our customers are happy. That's where the don't suck comes in. Just make sure the customer's happy. And 2, make it personal. Customers want to deal in relationships, in my business anyways, they want to know their exterminator that comes to their house, and they want to be buddy-buddy with them. They want to be able to trust this guy. And there's an emotional bank account that you have with your customers on a personal level, on a one-on-one level. And people will do things for other people. They won't necessarily do something for a corporation. Do you know what I mean? If Coke came to me and said, hey, drink my product and take a photo of it, that doesn't do anything for me or nearly as much as a marketing guy in Coke that I'm sitting with at a conference that says, hey, do you mind taking a photo shot of that? Because it's a relationship at that point. It's not me and a product. So we encourage our technicians to make it personal. So we would tell them, these customers. They're your friends. They're happy with your service. They've already said that to us. Make it personal. When you're talking to them, make sure that review is going to help me on a personal level with my career and with my business and with my route. And so we've encouraged them to do that. And then 3, so you don't suck. You make sure they're happy. You make it personal. Say, hey, if you're happy with today's service, Do you mind helping me out? And you ask them while you're there on the door after you've already made sure they're smiling and happy. Same thing that you were just talking about a second ago with the review funnel on your website. You can do that in a one-on-one personal space. Instead of just having the thumbs up, thumbs down, you look at the customer, and when the customer smiles, you know that you can ask for a review. And so we've told our technicians, ask them how the service was. Are you happy with the service? And are there any other problems? And they say, no, everything's great, and they give you that smile. That is the time to pounce. That is the time to ask for the review, because in that moment they are indebted to you, and they will give you that review. If we try to do the same thing where we email out, we've tried emailing out our customers, we don't get the same response. We don't get the same quality of reviews. People aren't as happy. They're not as indebted to an individual, and they're not doing it on a personal level. And then the last thing we do is we tenaciously go after bad reviews. If I see a bad review online, we check every week for our reviews. And when we see bad reviews, we try to figure out immediately what happened, who it was, contact the customer. We've gone as far as I had a lady one time here at one of our offices go and deliver flowers to a lady to say sorry because we screwed up. And we admitted it. We said, oh, we're sorry, we screwed up. I know you took off and you left us. We just want to give you these flowers. Here's your refund check. Is there anything else we can do to make this right? And she came back and she tried our service again, and she was happy there on out.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant. Love it.
It's really good. It's really good insight, and it's interesting. It's great because I guess for us who don't work within a kind of business, we're kind of always looking at this from the kind of metrics that often we're kind of tasked with, which is about ranking. Kind of driving leads, but you get to see more of the whole spectrum of the kind of performance of the business and how reviews just, they're not a one-trick pony. They actually are a great kind of health check for the entire business and can move the lever in a number of different areas, which all in all makes for kind of better performance, better business growth. Presumably kind of happier customers and happier people kind of working within the business. You also get people who work with a business that's got high customer satisfaction. They're all happy people. It's very rare you come across a business that's got high kind of customer satisfaction and everyone hates working there. The two things just don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really cool for our technicians too. Back to the culture side of it. They're resistant at first. They don't want to feel awkward. They don't want to feel like they're like they're asking a favor of people. And so they are resistant at first, but once they realize, hey, this actually strengthens the relationship between me and my customer, because they've done me a favor now. Next time I go back out and say, hey, I read your review. I really appreciate it. Thank you for leaving that comment. It builds the relationship. They have more together now than they did before. So when you have these exchanges, when you're depositing something into an emotional bank account and they're depositing it back into yours, it grows the relationship. Yeah. And our technicians, they know that now, and they're happy about it now too, because they get praise online they didn't know that they were appreciated for before.
And people don't get complicated enough, period, in any organization. So any way you can find, any excuse that you can find to celebrating a success with your employees and technicians is a win-win for everybody. Because like you said, if they're happy at their job, they're going to be happy with the customers. So there's so much more to getting reviews than just getting reviews for marketing. That's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
Guys, that's great. We are a little bit over time, so we're just going to do a very quick third poll, which is going to run for 30 seconds. Ross, can you fire up that poll, please? Hopefully you can see it on your screens. Yeah, looks like you can do. And then we'll do a quick vote. We're going to run 30 seconds. Then we're going to go to the 3 top tips. So Thomas is going to give his 3 top tips for you guys to kind of take away the 3 key things that about optimizing SABs. The 3 things you should focus on. Thomas is going to have his top 3. Then Matt's going to give us his top 3. Then we're going to do the results of the polls, and then that's pretty much it. We'll do a quick wrap up and we're done. So 5 minutes from here we should be all over. We've got 50% of people voted. Guys, you just drive the numbers a little bit. I'd love to get up to 60% at the very least. This is interesting, actually. Interesting people who don't yet have a review strategy. So I think you'll find the answer to this quite enlightening. Okay, for speed's sake, let's stop the poll there. We're going to go to 3 top tips for SABs, and we're going to cut to Thomas first and foremost. Thomas, over to you.
Okay. Oh, you didn't get my updated slide. Know they. It's supposed to be know thy nap.
Apology.
That's a commandment. That's what that is.
Okay, so I can edit it. No.
Thy nap. There you go.
There you go. No nap.
Perfect. And it should be naps, but we're good. So, knowing and having a written, this standard for your name, address, and phone number is essential in local SEO, and it's like dirty laundry almost, because I feel embarrassed sometimes when I'm looking at my own name, address, phone number online, and I can't even get it completely right myself. So just having that down in a location and starting there is absolutely important. Knowing exactly how to write it, ask Google, go plug your address into Google the way you think it should be written, and look at what Google actually returns as that address. Is huge. Know best page to use for your site, for the URL that you're going to be referring to, and be consistent across the board. And then I'm still shocked how many people don't list their name, address, and phone number on their own site, and on the landing page they're showing Google. The URL you direct them to absolutely has to have this exact same name, address, phone number listed on it. And I know you guys were talking about call tracking before, and that complicates things a little bit. But even with call tracking, you can put a structured data type on there with the actual name, address, and phone number on that page anywhere, and still have a different phone number. You can have another phone number in the top for call tracking, but you got to have the actual phone number, address, and name as you're pushing it out on the page that you're directing Google to. And then last but not least is absolutely implement a review strategy. I think for most small businesses today, their online presence can be summed up into this. I don't even think they need the SEO that we've been doing for the last 10 years to do well online anymore. I think if they got their name, address, phone number, and site all taken care of, squared away properly, and then implement a review strategy, I think a lot of the other little details would take care of themselves.
Great. Thomas, thank you very much for that. Very nice and concise. And Matt.
Hey, it's pretty much the same thing that Thomas said. Clean up your nap. Build some citations on relevancy, and build some unique pages of content for the areas that you serve. So, don't just spam a bunch of keywords on one page. But we covered most of this already, so yeah, I think that sums it up.
That's great takeaway, guys. So thank you for that. Okay, quick poll results for those of us who've hung on. Thank you, guys. First question was, what are the two biggest issues or frustrations you have in optimizing an SAB? Obviously, kind of reviews was the one that kind of came out on top. Then it was kind of sort of site content and kind of generating enough site content. Then it was about kind of setting surface area and map. And citations appeared not to be too much of a concern, but definitely getting that review strategy or generating enough reviews or engaging a business to generate reviews came out top there. The second poll was, which of these NAP tactics do you use right now? So 46% people said they don't use any of them. 21% said they use a virtual office. 70% using kind of call tracking. 10% are using employees' homes, and 6% are still using PO boxes. So a good sort of spread of people using those different tactics, but all people are doing a good job here. And obviously, kind of call tracking isn't essentially a no-no. If done in the right way, it can be a very effective and useful tool for a business. And the third one was, do you have a tried and tested review strategy? 42% said not yet, 27% said yes, but it's not working as well as they hoped, and no, 50% said no. So actually over 50% of people don't have an effective review strategy or haven't developed one yet, while only 16% think it's working well. And given how important a focus that both Thomas and Matt kind of said about reviews were for their businesses or their clients, that's a very interesting result. I think we've got right there. So hopefully that's useful for you guys to kind of benchmark yourselves against others out there. Feels like reviews is a key area for us all to be focusing on with our clients and our own businesses. So a few upcoming webinars we've got. We're going to have a break on the Inside Local series between now and January. We've got 2 webinars. Just need to lock down the dates and the exact speakers for those. We'll do one on mobile optimization, one is sort of State of the Union, which we did about 4 months ago, just kind of seeing where we are in general. Then in February we're going to do one on reporting, and then hopefully in February we'll do one on advanced Google Plus optimization, Linda there. So we will put some dates and some speakers against those in the coming week. For anyone who missed our recent webinars, they're all recorded. They're all available on the page brightlocal.com/InsideLocal. We've got things on ranking factors, reviews, citations, sales strategies for local agencies, sort of advanced on-site local SEO techniques, and also state of local search from back in July. You can kind of keep track and register what's going on inside local, both on Bright Local and on the local search forum. And it's Christmas pretty soon, so this is the last time that you'll hear our lovely voices before Christmas. A big thank you to the 2 speakers, to Thomas and to Matthew. Also a big thank you to Linda and Colin for your expert pitching in, both on verbally answering questions but also in the kind of Q&A chat. And most importantly, a big thanks to everyone who's hung on in there for the 90 or so minutes for the webinar. Do appreciate your time. Take care wherever you are. Have a great day. Have a great Christmas, and look forward to reconnecting with you in 2014. Guys, like to say anything, parting comments?
Thanks for
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
See you guys next year.
That's great. All the best, guys. Thank you so much to the 2 speakers. Thomas, I don't speak to you before you go on holiday. Have a wonderful holiday as well. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's very nice.